everyone, it's Rita with Everything Homemade, and guess what we're doing today? We are going to can the cucumbers I have right here, and we're going to make pickles. And so this is probably a super requested video. I've done canned red beets, I've done canned carrots. Now it's time to show you how to make pickles. Now there is tons of recipes. I'm going to focus on the one that everyone loves here at the house, and then you can take it from there. So in the garden, we have picked, obviously, cucumbers, but I also see that there is, within about 3 days, we're going to have about 4 times the amount that I am holding here. So what I'm going to do is, I don't want to can quite yet. I want to wait for that 3 days to go so I can can a couple of rounds in my canner. So I need to preserve these while I wait for the ones in the garden to come. So this is going to be an in-depth video. I am going to show you from start to finish on how to can your cucumbers. So it's going to be a little bit lengthy, but when you're done, you're going to be equipped to do it yourself. So the first thing that I like to do is, when I know that there is not enough here, and I know within a few days there is going to be, what I like to do is take my cucumbers, and I find a good clean pail. Okay, so I'm pretty sure I can get this full within the 3 days. I make sure I have a lid. Then what I like to do is take my bucket, and these little ends that were the flower heads, I make sure that they're off, because that's what's going to mold in your bucket. And I'm just going to open up my garbage here to my left. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take my cucumbers one by one. I'm going to check for those flower heads, and then I'm going to put them into my bucket. So it's like this. This is a good example. Look at that flower head right there, okay? We want to take that off, because we don't want them to mold into the water. Again, this one here. Okay, we're just going to do this really quickly. Such a beautiful, oh my goodness. So this here tells me my kids and I have missed picking this one over and over. We call it the sneaky cucumber. And it finally got picked. Okay, and so we got cucumbers of all shapes and sizes. And so again, just take off those ends. Okay, so once you have that done, I'm doing this in the bathtub because I'm dealing with bigger pails. What I like to do is, because we have a filter to our water, this isn't chlorinated water, is I like to use cold water. And I'll just give this a quick rinse at first to get all the dirt off. And then I'll dump it out. And then I'll fill it up. Now this is ice cold water. You do not want to use warm water, you want to use ice cold water. And you want it just enough where it's going to just make sure they're all submerged. So just like that. And then what I'm going to do is just take my lid, put my lid on, and then I'm going to just store it in the fridge. If you don't have a fridge, use cold storage, but you want them to be chilled. Whatever location you are, just keep them cool until the next harvest. Now you don't want to do this indefinitely. 2 or 3 days is going to be just perfect. So I'm going to store these, and I will be back in 2 or 3 days with the rest of the harvest. Hey everyone, we are back in the kitchen. So you just saw me soaking these cucumbers with cold water. And it was about up to here at first, but we have added more cucumbers to this pail. This is a 4-gallon pail, and it is right full. So there's not a lot of headspace left, and we just picked more last night. Now, I want to say a couple of things that are really, really important here. One, before we start getting going and canning these beautiful cucumbers, there's a couple of things you need to consider. One, this can last for a little while. It has been in the fridge for 5 days. We've been adding to it. So don't get scared. Things that are fresh, soaked in water, and refrigerated last quite a long time, as long as you take those ends off. The second thing is you may need to add some more water. The other thing you want to consider before we start is getting everything ready. I like to do things fresh. So I got my cucumbers here ready. I've got my canner set up here. I've got what I need to can right here set up. I have my lids, my snap lids. I do have an extra hot plate because this particular burner has died on me, so I am kind of short. I took out my portable stovetop so I will be using that. The other thing you need to get ready is your jars. So take a look here. I have my jars. They are washed with soap and water. I will turn on my stove once we start prepping more in the house, and we're gonna sterilize them that way. Now, I wanna make a note here that I can a little bit different. I can the way my mom canned the way her grandmother canned, and so forth and so on. If you do not know how to can, right on top of the screen here, there's going to be how to can. It's about a 25-minute video, and I go in depth, step by step, on the preparation and what you need to know about canning and understanding. I am not going to go in detail here. If you do not understand, watch that 25-minute video, then everything else will be clear. The other thing is, in this garden series that I am doing right now, you will see links coming up for how to can carrots, how to can red beets. I've already done those videos, so I'm not going to repeat them. So there will be links every single time that I do a canning video to other canning videos that I have already done. The other thing is, you can go to Everything Homemade page. You can click on the playlist. You can pull up the folder that says how canning goodies, I think it is called, and all the canning videos will also be in there, including the ones in the garden series. So everything there is easy for you to find. The other thing you need to consider is what you're putting in your jars. Now, I'm going to go out and I'm going to show you 3 different methods to keep your cucumbers crunchy. There's some leaves and a root that you can get in nature, or you have already grown them into your garden. The other thing is that we're gonna wildcraft a couple of different kind of leaves just to add flavor and a little bit of a zing to your cucumbers. Some things are gonna be pretty normal, some things are gonna be unconventional, which maybe you'll be like, are you serious you're gonna put that in? Trust me, it tastes really, really good. So now that we have everything set up, Ocean and I are going to head outside. I'm going to be doing some of the wildcrafting. She's going to be doing some of the wildcrafting, and we're going to have a lot of fun filling our bowl full of goodies from outside to put in our jar. Okay, Ocean, are you ready?
Yeah.
So the first thing we're going to do is get a little bit of horseradish root. So if you could take a look, this horseradish is huge. And there's a couple different methods. So Ocean has found a baby horseradish right there, and she's going to dig that up because we don't want it spreading any further. So she's just going to use a spade, and what we're looking for is their roots. Now, horseradish gives a really nice hotness to your cucumbers, but it also does another duty. It keeps them crunchy, and it probably is the best root to do this with that I know of.
That one must have come by seed.
So Ocean said there's not much root there, so let's get another little one, Ocean. Or just head right to the big plant there.
Yeah.
So she's going to rip at some of the leaves here. You can be fairly violent with your horseradish, as it really can take a beating. And what we're doing is we're looking for a good size root for our jars. So horseradish, I really like using because it's simple to get, it's easy to grow, and I use it in all my canning. When I can carrots, when I can beans, when I can cucumbers. So you can see there she's uncovered a root right there. So that's what we're looking for, is this here is the roots. So we're going to grab a few of them, and basically like this root right here will do 7 jars easy. So you don't need a lot of root. The more horseradish you put in, obviously the more of the hotness you're gonna get. So we're gonna add a little more. The kids really love it when mommy adds horseradish. So that should be good, Ocean. Okay, so the next plant we're gonna harvest is the garlic.
There we go. Got you 3 on accident, but
Okay.
that should be good.
Yeah, so so pull a few more, because I want a few more garlic. These are actually volunteer garlic, that's why they don't have such a nice heads, but volunteer or not, we need some garlic. And they will work.
Can we get these ones or just leave them?
Nope, just leave those ones.
Okay.
Just cover that back up.
There you go.
So you two, do you know what you could do for me?
What?
I want you to take those scissors that Ocean will pass you, and I want you to cut off those bulbs for me.
Okay.
And then I want you to just trim up those roots a little bit. Cut the stem off right there. Awesome. And then put it in. Yeah, and then trim their root. Awesome. So you're gonna do that. So Ocean, you need to come with me now, and we are going to do some wild crafting. Now, if you don't have a horseradish, the other alternative is grape leaves. So when you're looking at grape leaves, you want to make sure that there's no bite marks. It's really important when you're harvesting leaves is that there's no slug damage or pest damage, and you can check behind too. You want it to look clean. You don't want anything. You notice that there's black stuff on the back of this leaf, Ocean, on the back of your leaf there.
Mine's pretty clean.
There's really clean, and you don't want to overtake. So with grape leaves, you need 2 leaves per 1 quart. And that will do you just fine. So we're gonna go ahead, Ocean. We're gonna Wildcraft. We'll do 6 leaves. I also, because I have grapes, they give a nice dimension and flavor.
I love
and we can just add a few with the horseradish. But if you don't have horseradish, you can definitely use grape leaves. Mediterranean climates, that's what they use heavily, is grape leaves in their canning jar. So how to harvest grape leaves, it's pretty simple. You got a couple options. You can snip with a scissor, or you can just take your hand and just pluck it off just like that. So we're gonna do 6 in total. I try to look for quite large leaves.
Like this one?
Like that one there, yeah. And then we'll move on because we got lots of great plants here. Now these we just planted, so they're not huge yet. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna harvest these leaves, and then we're gonna move on to the next plant. So what happens if you don't have horseradish and you don't have grapes? You can also do currants. Now I don't grow currants in my garden, but I do have lots and lots of wild currants. Now I'm just gonna watch my step because this is all stinging nettle, and I will be hurting if I get stung here. Okay, so Ocean's going to jump down here, And there is a huge, now I don't think I can get down here really well, but there is a huge red currant vine. You want to move that tree there, Ocean? Right there. There you go. So you guys take a look. There's a huge currant vine right there. It is massive.
Look at all these.
And she is going to harvest some of the leaves. And currants also have the same property that you're looking for in the horseradish and in the grape leaves. So again, same thing. What you want to do is pick the nicest leaves possible. So Ocean, just go, just perfect. So they look like this.
Hey, there's a raspberry. You don't want to do this.
They look like this here. They've got a really nice shape to it. And you want to do about 4 or 5 of these currant leaves just because they're smaller. But I have had great success also. I've done all these leaves before. And I like all 3 methods. The other thing that tastes really good when you are canning cucumbers is peppermint. And so I like to do a couple of jars with peppermint leaves in them because it gives them a really cool, interesting, but delicious flavor. So what I want Ocean to do is she's going to cut from the bottom here, and she's going to cut about 6 inches high, and she's going to basically get me a bouquet of peppermint. Because we are going to do a few jars here, and look at our peppermint, you guys. All of this is peppermint that we're going to cut down right away. Hang. It is going crazy this year, one because of the moisture, just the right heat. It was perfect growing conditions for the peppermint. So we're going to utilize some of it. That's good now, Ocean. So we're going to add that to our bowl. So we're in the garden. And oh, the cucumbers are so beautiful. They're producing so well. And it'll look like after this, we'll probably be canning about every 10 days until, you know, the daylight slows down. We're in northern Alberta, Canada. So this is the best opportunity is the next 2 weeks to get as much cucumbers as possible. So we've got some dill right here. Now we've had a bit of aphid issues, so I'm actually going to leave this dill alone. We're going to look at the volunteer dill so we can give that dill a little chance to come back. So going into our tomato patch here, we have a volunteer dill right there. So Ocean, go ahead and cut off a couple of the heads there, please. And you can take some of the leaves also. They've got nice flavor too.
There you go.
So we're going to grab some dill there. The other thing is we've got some more volunteer dill. So once you plant dill in the garden, you're always going to have some dill that comes up so we're going to have a couple of different flavors. We're going to have some with the peppermint with no dill and some obviously with the dill. So you can take all the leaves there, Ocean, just snip the whole, yeah, just like that. Perfect. And you can do the other one there.
Who can? Me. Hey.
Oh my man, you just can smell that dill when you cut it.
It's so good.
Wow. Now that we have some fresh ingredients, let's go inside, wash them, and let's prepare to fill our jars. So now that we're in the house comes the huge preparation of the cucumbers themselves, washing the peppermint, the dill, the garlic. So I'm going to do that, get all those leaves washed and ready. And then I'm going to help my children here. So it's all about teamwork. So Ocean here, she has been canning for a long time with me. And so she's going to show you how to take those prickly spines off. You see the black here? They're actually quite spiky. You can get cucumbers now, prickling cucumbers that don't grow those spikes, but I really like the national pickling cucumber because they don't have powdery mildew are very seldom. They grow well in northern climates and in short climates, and they produce a lot, so I will deal with the spines. So what she wants to do, there's a couple methods. You can take a scrub brush, but what we find really simply is just using your thumb. So simply you take them out, you take your hand and you just put a little bit of pressure on, and you just simply slide your thumb over, and you can see that they have disappeared. And basically we do that for all of them, and that's how we take the spines off. So Ocean's gonna do some more here. It goes really, really quick, and a lot of times I have a team of two, whether that's myself or my kids. One is taking the spines off, and as she does that, we come to Grace. How are you doing, Grace?
Good.
Good?
It's my first cucumber to cut.
Yeah, it is your first cucumber of the season to cut. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna show two different methods here. Okay, Grace?
Yeah.
One, we're gonna show a method of how to can these if these were to be whole cucumbers or pickles at the end, right? And how to do it if you're going to slice them. Okay?
Yeah.
So there's a couple things here. If you're gonna leave them whole, we need to make poke holes in them because you need the brine to get into the cucumbers. So you're going to show them how you should do that. So you need to poke about 3 times on each side. So this is smaller, so kind of 3 times here, 3 times here, and then what I usually do is 1 at the end and 1 here, and you want to make sure that you get your fork into the cucumber.
Yeah.
So you can show them that.
So 1,
Yep, just like that.
2, 3.
Yep. And then flip it over.
1, 2, 3.
Awesome. And now 1 at the end.
1.
Yep. And then at the other end. So that's what you would do if you're going to leave these whole. And you would do that appropriately to size. So if you have something like this, you're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're going to do every single side just because this is a bigger cucumber, and I may do 2 on the ends, okay? But we aren't going to be doing that method because what I like to do is slice. I know my kids like them whole, but I prefer the slicing for a couple of reasons. One, I can jam pack my jar and use less brine. So I can make sure I get the jar packed, and therefore I can put more in my jar if I were just to put these all in as whole cucumbers. The second is I usually have to cut them anyway, so why not get rid of that step now? So what we're gonna do, if we're gonna have to cut these up, and these small ones I want cut up too, is I don't worry about these ends. Like once this here is pickled, it tastes delicious. So what I want you to do is just put them into slices now, Grace. Show them that. Beautiful, just like that. So stop there so you don't cut me. So all we are is looking at a slice. You know, sometimes they're 1/4 of an inch, other times they're probably down to 1/8. It really is up to you how big of slices you want. The other thing you can do, you can slice it in lengthwise, and that would be, you know, whatever your heart's desire here. So as I was cleaning up the herbs right here, I did the garlic, beautiful garlic. I realized that I should show you guys how to prepare the horseradish. So I've done this one. So what I did was I just rinsed it in water right here, and to get the dirt off. And then what I do is I take just a peeler. And horseradish can be tricky to hold because it is smaller, especially these smaller ones. So what I do is that I lay it on the counter, and I just use the counter to help me peel it. So for example, this one here, I'm just taking and peeling that thin skin, kind of like peeling a carrot, before we chop it up. So just like that. And I'm going to do it to this one here too. Now, horseradish comes in a lot of different size roots. So the bigger the root, obviously, the little bit easier time you have. But you just want to get that skin off it. Okay? The other thing is that with the herbs here, with the peppermint, I just want the leaf part here. I don't want this heavy stem. So I'm just going to take the leaves off quickly on a lot of these and then just compost the stem. So that's what I'm doing here. So now that we have everything mostly ready, the next thing we need to do is make our brine. Now this is the same brine that I used for the red beets, the carrots, and will be using for the beans. It's just a base. What flavor changes is that what you put into the jars is different. So in the brine that I'm making, it's 12 cups water to 4 cups vinegar. Now I use apple cider vinegar. You can use white vinegar if you'd like. Then I'm using 3/4 a cup of a sugar. I prefer honey. And then you are going to use 1 cup of salt. Now I'm just using a standard dirty sea salt with all its minerals in it. I find that it does just fine. You can use pickling salt if you like. If you use pickling salt, you may actually have to increase it by another cup. When you're using a more natural salt, you can actually get away with less. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to set this brine up very, very simply. Now that we have the brine ready, I am going to put it onto the hot plate right here, and I'm going to heat it up until it boils, and then I'm going to cut down the heat and just keep it at that boil. So that's really important. So I'm going to leave that just like that, enough where the honey here is going to melt off my ladle. And then I will remove the ladle. You don't want to leave it in here while it boils. I have the snap lids already heating up, and you can see the steam coming. I just want to keep this nice and hot. I do not want to boil this, so I'm just going to adjust my temperature a bit here. As for the stove, I have my canner on. This is heating. I'm going to cut it down to low. I do not want this water to boil yet. I have my oven on at 250 for the jars are already sterile. So moving over here, I'm just going to move my honey out of the way. Moving here, I have my herbs that we've collected. I have a pickling spice. Now this is my homemade blend, but it's identical to the store-bought stuff. This here is our garlic, and then we have horseradish. The only thing that I'm missing here is onions, but I realized this morning I have no onions downstairs in cold storage. So today we're gonna can without the onions. Normally I usually put a handful of onions in with the jars, but today we're not. And I'm a ways from the city, so therefore we have no onions, and I didn't grow onions in the garden this year, so that's what it's just gonna happen. So some other options here is, if you like things a little bit on the kicker side of things, add some chili peppers, add some jalapeno peppers. You can just think outside the box. Some people like adding some cauliflower in it. So whatever suits you fancy, put it in your jar. I'm gonna show you a couple things here. Normally, like I said, I would have onions in here, but just put stuff in a jar that you like as a family and that you're going to enjoy eating. The other thing is, if you have no idea what you like, what I did 10 years ago was I made about 20 different varieties. I had 2 jars of this kind, 2 jars of that kind, 2 jars of this, and I just figured out what my family liked. Then I narrowed it down to a few, and now I make them like that all the time, because I know everybody will like them. So the biggest thing here is getting this set up. So what I'd like to do, these jars are hot, is get the jars out of the oven. Okay, one by one here. So we have our jar here. The first thing we want to do is add a couple of garlic. In this one, I'm going to add a bit of horseradish, a few in there. And then what I want to do is I'm going to add a little bit of peppermint at the bottom. And this is where I would add onions if I had some.
Pickling spice.
And Ocean said I missed pickling spice. I sure did, but that's okay. We add a tablespoon of pickling spice. And then we just we want to pack it. The big thing is you don't want airspace, because airspace, the more airspace you have, the more brine you need. So what I want to do is get these jars right packed. And I'm going to just make sure that all the corners are packed really well. You seeing this, Ocean?
Yep.
Okay. And because these are sliced, they'll take on the brine really well. The other thing is you never ever want to eat your canning stuff too early. I wait a minimum of 1 month. Normally when you're canning anyway in the season, by the time you really start opening your jars, you're at least a couple of months. And that's what you need for the real flavor to come out. Jams, on the other hand, I mean, if you're canning jams, you can eat them right away, but when you're dealing with brine and canning carrots and beans and red beets, you really want to wait. Okay, so something like that, and I'm just going to stick a couple by hand at the top. There we go. I want a bit of head space, so I can fill the brine fairly close to the top, but that's all I want to do, because I want to stick a little bit of more peppermint at the top of this one, because this is a peppermint jar. So I'm going to shove a little bit of peppermint at the top here. That way the flavor it comes from the bottom here, and then it comes down from the top here. Okay, so the next step we want to do is get the brine in here. Okay, so now we need to add some brine to this. So we're going to bring this jar to this station right here. And I'm going to use a funnel so I have less mess. You want to keep things as clean as possible. And then you just fill up your jar with this wonderful brine. Now, when I think it's full, what I'd like to do is take my wooden spoon again and just kind of pack it in, because what happens is that brine will decrease because you're letting it into some air pockets, and you can see the bubbles come up. So that's all the air pockets that are coming up, and basically it'll help fill that jar complete with brine, instead of leaving maybe an area that doesn't have any. And then I will add just a little bit more at the top, and there you go. If you spill any, you can just run your finger around it. All done. The next thing you want to do is grab your snap lid right here, and then you put it on top, and then you grab a ring. And this is really important, where you want to make sure that these rings are uneven, and this one doesn't. There we go. And then what I'm going to do, because this jar is hot, I'm just going to hold it here, give a tight turn, and then I'm going to take my first jar to my canner, and I am going to just adjust these here. Sometimes these fall, which is really irritating, and I'm just going to lift them up, and then I'm going to try this again, and I'm going to take my jar into my water. Now this is where it's really important why I didn't have this water at a complete boil, is because my jars are not that hot. And if I have this counter hotter than my jars, I'm gonna break my jars. So what I wanna do is just keep this water hot, get all my jars, and then slowly heat it up, so therefore I'm not going to crack my jars. Okay, let's do another one here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do all 3 different flavors, and then I'm going to just continue canning off the video, and then I will show you the end result. Okay, the next flavor, so we did peppermint, so I'm going to start again with the garlic. This time I'm not going to forget my pickling spice, a tablespoon in the bottom there. I'm going to throw in a grape leaf right at the bottom there, and then I'm going to do the same technique, and I'm going to fill my jar with the cucumbers. Okay, so this one now is pretty well jam-packed. And what I'm going to do now is take another beautiful grape leaf, and I'm going to just shove it in onto the side. Now I like kind of burying it in like that, because then it doesn't float to the top. It stays in the brine really well. And what I'm going to do is put this one to the side, and I'm going to grab another jar to show you the other flavoring. So again, your base, I put some 2 garlic in there again. This is again, I'm going to put some onions in. I'm going to put in some currant leaves, and that one's a big one. Now you need a little bit more currant, so I'm going to put a big one and a small one in there, and then I'm going to again put some pickling spice in, just like that, and put my cucumbers in. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab a currant leaf. I'm going to put it, kind of shove it in, and that's all the currant leaves we picked, so that's all it's going to get, and then that'll be that jar. Now let's do another flavoring. Okay, with this one here, I'm going to make it dill. So I'm going to put a couple of garlics in again. I'm going to take a dill head right here, and I'm going to just kind of squish it up a little bit. Get it at the bottom. And I'm going to put a dill head and some leaves at the bottom. And then because if I do dill, I only use a half a teaspoon of the pickling spice. Sorry, I would put a half a tablespoon of the pickling spice, and then if I had onions, I would put onions in, and then I would put my cucumbers into it. I decrease on the pickling spice when I have the dill, because the dill's already strong enough, so I really don't need as much pickling spice into the jar. Okay. And so with the dill, because it takes up a little bit more headspace on top, I don't fill the jar as full because the dill is quite a bit bigger. So I shove a dill in here at the top, like so. And I'm gonna add an extra garlic because I really like the fresh dill and the garlic at the top. And then, oh, I forgot to add the horseradish in this one. So let's add about 3 or 4 little pieces of horseradish at the top because we want to keep them nice and crunchy. So we're gonna put that horseradish right there. And then now we need to add brine. So now I have all 4 flavorings. And you can mix this up if you want a little bit. You don't have to add garlic to each one. You don't even need to add onions. You can add onions and not garlic. So really what's in your container is up to you. But what's really important is getting that brine nice and hot. Make sure you have a brine in your jars and make sure that they are covered, the cucumbers. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead again, fill these up with the brine, and then I'll meet you at the canner when it's filled. I have all the jars in, and an average canner is seven 1-quart jars. So I also make sure, now it's a little bit hard to see because they are covered with water. There's about 1 inch over the top, which you really want that to happen. I've now cranked the heat up so that way these can now heat up and my jars won't crack. I've also been heating this water up a little bit warmer as I've been putting it into the jar, so I'm not going from like really low to high. I've already upped the heat as I was putting them in. So I'm gonna just put the lid on and then go I usually go 12 minutes on a very light simmer. I don't want to cook the cucumbers because I want them to be crunchy. And so I'm going to basically wait the 12 minutes under a very light simmer. Once those 12 minutes are up, then I'm going to depressurize like I showed you on the how to can video. And then I will take them out of the canner and then start on the next batch. So looking over here, we did about half, so I'll get another probably either a 6 or 7 jars, and I've got some ingredients left. So that is awesome to get the first 14 jars of pickled cucumbers into the cold storage. And so I really hope that we can get about 60 jars. I would be thrilled to get about 60 jars of pickles in the cold storage for over winter. The timer just went and now we need to depressurize. So when we depressurize, we need to turn off the hot plate. We need to remove the lid. And basically what that does is prevents this from continuing to cook. It'll stop boiling, and then after 5 minutes we're going to take the jars out. So now it's done depressurizing, and this is the moment that I love, taking it out of the canner. The second moment I love is when I hear the snap. Now you may actually hear them snap, and we're just going to bring them over here onto the towel. You're going to notice that I'm holding a tea towel here. It's because I don't want the water dripping on the floor, and it's so I don't get burned. So I'm just holding it over just because I've got a distance to go here. I also have a towel down here so I don't burn my table. One more time before I am complete, but for the sake of this video we're going to stop here. Now what you want to do is leave these jars for 24 hours. Do not disturb them. Within that 24 hours they should all have snapped or make that popping noise which seals it. The other thing you want to do is do the testing, where after 24 hours you're going to run your finger like this over the top of them. And if they're pressed down, they won't go up and down. And I've really explained that in the how to can video. So, and the other thing is these rings can come off. You do not have to put these in cold storage, so you can use them again and again, because once they're sealed, they're sealed. This ring is doing absolutely nothing to create that seal anymore. Initially it did to go into the canner, but after that rubber ring is now sealing the jar, and this here becomes useless. So you can just unscrew those and store them, label them, put 2020 on them, and you can also label the flavors if you like. Other than that, that is everything for this particular episode. So that is everything for this video. Also, at the end of this video, you'll see a trailer for my books. I am also an author, and I am writing a Heart Journey series right now. Book 1 is out. Book 2 is coming in the August 2020, and every 6 months after that till the 5 books are done. So you can definitely order my books from Amazon. There's links in the description box below. Enjoy them, and thank you so much for watching.